Okay, kind of fucked up with my first attempt to go live here, so that was interesting. So I kind of want to talk about something sort of interesting, which is kind of has is with respect to kind of stuff that Eminem talks about quite a good bit. I do like I do like to watch Eminem quite a bit. Um, I don't always get involved with with the discussion, but I kind of want to talk a little bit about life in general and human life and its I guess its function or in its use. So um, I wanted to talk about life itself and what function and use life has, and I think Eminem talks a good bit about how human life in general is, and I guess people in a sense are broken and how there's not much use for it. So Eminem is a very well known um, YouTube ethicist and antinatalist. So it's kind of, I mean, I'm not entirely on the same page as he is. I do agree with some of the things that he says about how often and almost always there is no function of human life. There's a function that was supposed to happen. There was supposed to be a function, of course. Um, whether you're looking at life from how it originated with some sort of religious deity, or if you're the atheist and you think that and you believe that there's some sort of abiogenesis as to how life came about, you could say that there is supposed to be some sort of use with life. There's supposed to be some sort of function, and that doesn't always occur. That doesn't always happen the way it's supposed to. And often, and I think that um, lower forms of life have more use and function than we do as humans. I think that we as humans end up being more broken, more and having no function or less function, or less use or no use. So thinking about whether life originates um, from some sort of religious deity or from some sort of scientific abiogenesis. Um, and I mean that's kind of that kind of doesn't entirely um, uh, doesn't always have too much. That isn't really what I want to get into. I don't want to get into how life originated, but I want to talk about life as it is and whether it does have use, and how thinking about let's say the lower forms of life like protozoa, bacteria, paramecium. I think those kinds of life, that kind of life, I think it does have the possibility of being broken. It does have the possibility of losing function. However, with those kinds of things, the the complexity is much lower. There is a lot of complexity as to how those kinds of things exist, but what those things try to do, which is exist in a very simple fashion, I think that the possibility of being broken and having less function is happens less. And even if we're talking about higher forms of life like plant or fungi or uh, the animal kingdom, I think there is there is some sort of there is a lot of function there, more function there, I'd say, than there is with humans. With humans, I think that there is an amount of complexity where things often don't end up having function. I think that humans in general have to really make a lot of effort in order to have function. And I think most of the time, human life does not have function or use even. So I just want this to be sort of a relaxed discussion about kinds of things. So let's talk about um, let's talk about a killer whale who is in the ocean and is living its happiest life and its best life where it is, and about how that how that life form does have use. I think that oftentimes when humans get into the picture and how they captured all these whales, like you'll see in the documentary Blackfish. And this happens. I think that there's a lot of ethical reasons against zoos and SeaWorld and all that stuff as to how when we kidnap an animal and we put it in a zoo or a SeaWorld or something, especially I think with respect to Shamu or dolphins, I think the function and use definitely goes down because we basically ruin their life by taking them out of their natural habitat, and sort of that's when, because they have a lot less room to swim, they don't have as much oxygen, and that's when they're kind of with the orcas, their fin flip over like this. Now I don't think that all animal captivity is wrong. I think that when you have an endangered species, because people are going in and fucking up the whole thing, the fucking up the balanced and right the right harmony that nature has. That's when use typically will go down whenever humans get involved, especially when there's poaching involved. I think it's good in that case when we take a few animals that are left in order to breed them and make more of them, in order to stop them from being from becoming extinct. That I think is good because there is some human involvement in animal life that can be good, but that's on the minimum, I would say, because there are so many zoos in this world and so many, bad things that humans do, and that which fuck up the balance and the harmony that nature has. And I think that the balance and harmony of nature, like with the orca whales or the sperm whales, or the humpback whales, there's a lot of use and there is function in that because they do what they do to get food. They live, they breathe, and they breed, and they do all these things which are good for their life, and they have function, which is good. Now, going up to a more intelligent and more complex life, so you'd think that a life form that is intelligent and is more complex than, say, a gorilla, and I think that the life of humans is a more complex scientific thing than is, say, a gorilla, that you would think would have more use and more function, but that is not the case, as Emendum many times points out. That's just kind of what I would think. So I think, first of all, that what is supposed to be the function of human life? The function is very similar to what the function of a gorilla or a orca whale is supposed to have. Like, humans should be able to feed themselves, breathe, sleep, and have a nice, harmonious life. And also, I think that the function of human life is to be able to learn, is to be able to think, and to have a good life. But oftentimes, because of things that we do, even to ourselves, that the function definitely goes down. And I think that things like things like depression. I think that the whole function of human life is mostly broken, and um, it's mostly because we, are in this sort of maze, and we try to do certain things, and whenever we try to make things better, we end up kind of making things worse for ourselves. And I think that the antinatalists and the ethicists end up sort of believing that that kind of like David Benatar says. He has a book called Better Never to Have Been. He has a new one out too, that it's better that we were not, that it would be better that we weren't born, because we would not suffer, we wouldn't endure all of these things. Now, one way that human function is broken is poverty. Poverty is one big way that we are broken, because we have messed things up in a way such that there is overpopulation for one thing, but that isn't the brunt of it. I think that we could even be overpopulated and still be able to feed everyone. We'd be able to give food and water and shelter to everyone if we didn't have this element called greed. There are many things that are wrong with human life itself. One of them is definitely greed, and wanting more than what your fair share is, and the psychology of the human mind and how the mind works. That is another way that we're broken, because we analyze things in the wrong way. We end up, and I do think that depression is a disease. It is a mental illness. However, there's something wrong with us, because we are broken, and there are mental illnesses that is evidence of the fact that we are broken. That the function of human life is not there. We are broken ourselves. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here. It's just that we are broken, and I think that Eminem also thinks this too, and I think it's sort of a good idea to sort of stop trying to bring about progress. I think that progress in a way can be good, but if we are constantly trying to achieve betterness and progress all the time, that is when I think we can. It's kind of like this paradox where when we try to make things better, we end up making them worse, and I think that's definitely part of it. And also I think that just human function itself is broken, because we are broken in that we cannot be content with the harmony that we could have, and by that I mean having food, shelter, water, be able to breathe, being able to support yourself and having a wonderful and happy life. The problem is that part of our nature is that we have this concept of greed. We have this vice called greed, and that means for me anyway, that we could have this harmonious and happy life that that the rest of nature has, but we choose to try to go beyond that. We try to have as much money as possible, have as much possessions as possible, and we try to do all these different things which we think are better for us, but we can't be content with the harmonious life that nature is, that we could have for ourselves too. So, if there is any function that we have, what is it? I'm not really sure what it is. I think that we could have another way that we're broken is because of how we do have greed. We do have greed, and because of that, we have more concern for ourselves than we do others. That's another way I think that we're broken, and there's less function involved. And I think that there's absolutely very little empathy involved. There's very little caring for other people in this world at all, and it's a huge problem. I think that in nature, this exists on to a much larger degree than it does for us, because even though they have a much less complex mind and they have much less intelligence, they still have concern for others. I mean, there is still animals that will cross another because of breeding or because of something else. But I'm not going to ignore that fact of nature, that there is animals that will cross another animal or will do something against another animal, like fight it or something, because of breeding or because of food. I'm not saying that isn't true, because it is, but I think that there still is more empathy and more caring for others involved here. I think that because that fact that there is this greed and selfishness and antipathy, I think that it's just not, antipathy isn't the right word. Is not the right word. There is just this lack of caring for one another, because why would one care for someone else's needs when I myself could have all these more things and have all these more things than I might not have those things if I tried to help somebody else. So I think that's another way that we're broken. And there's no function for it. And the fact that there is just, because of human nature, there is so much suffering that occurs. Because of how we are, there is a lot of suffering. And I don't want to bring religion into this, but I think, as I am a religious person myself, so I do believe there's a reason for this, and I do believe that everything in the world, there's a specific reason for it. There's a reason why it happens, and however, I still don't think that human life has any use unless one takes it upon himself to be the diamond in the rough and do something different than everyone else has been doing. I just really don't think that, and there are not many people who do this, who most of us would rather do things for ourselves than try to help somebody else who has absolutely nothing. And I think that's the main reason why there is no function, because there is suffering in our lives that could, in all of our lives, in human life itself, that could very, very easily be prevented and wiped out. But that is never going to happen, and the reason is because that we are focused on ourselves, and we turn inward rather than outward, and that is our main way that we are messed up, and there's no use in it. However, and another thing to discuss is whether we have free will or not, and I think that is a religious topic as well as a metaphysical one, and I believe that we have free will, but yet we also don't. So I'm kind of a compatibilist, even though that kind of doesn't make sense, and I don't want to talk about that because that will get into religion, and that's not why I want to talk about this. I think that the whole idea of free will is sort of a thing too, and I think I think that that is an issue with respect to this, because if we really had free will, maybe this wouldn't be the case. Maybe we would be able to break out of this horrible and disgusting thing that is human life. I think that I think that, with respect to my religion, I think that human life is a beautiful thing. But then, as it progresses, as one human progresses, it gets more and more disgusting and more useless and more dysfunctional. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it. Um, so I'm still not an evolist. I'm not an antinatalist. I think that life can have use. Most of the time, it just doesn't. I think that the function of human life breaks down to a few human people who do have function in their life because they turn outward, and that is, in my opinion, the only way that you can really have any kind of happiness or harmony in your life is when you turn outward instead of inward. But I don't know. I mean, maybe going on for 20 minutes here, so I think I should probably stop. But I mean, that's just kind of, human life is broken until someone decides for their life not to be broken, not to have function. Human life is dysfunctional until someone decides, no, my life is not going to be dysfunctional. My life is going to have meaning and purpose and life and harmony in it, and I'm not going to focus on myself or care about myself my whole life. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on this. I think it is a interesting topic, and I think that there's a religious and an anti-religious way of looking at this. So I don't know. Thank you very much for watching. Whether you're watching live, as one person is right now, and whether if you watch this when it's after it's live. But thank you so much. And if you want me to do more of these live unscripted little things, let me know. Thank you.